Good morning, everyone. Gratitude to all of you. So your presence here has given us the energy to take this function forward and more motivation to work more towards Mother Nature and humanity. Thanks a lot to everyone and a whole heartfelt gratitude to all of you. So this panel discussion, many things have been already, it has come out during the talks that happened. So what we thought is there's a lot of discussions happening on ESG, and majority of us here are from the EHS fraternity, and we have a lot of challenges moving towards ESG, and the panelists would agree with me. So the topic that we chose here was exploring the intersection of EHS and ESG, because that is where we are all, that is the milestone where we are. We are moving toward ESG, and we have done a lot on EHS and how to bring this intersection. So best practices and building sustainable and resilient business. This is the topic that we have taken. So as I said, we are in this journey, and the milestone where we are is that intersection, and we need a lot of hands-on experience or hands-on examples of how we EHS fraternity can move towards sustainability. So when we interact with the clients, now in this scenario, we come to know a lot of challenges that they are facing. Many of them is, as I said, how EHS will fit into ESG. Or whatever we have already done, is it aligning with sustainability, or we should do something more? That is also one more question. Another is there is a lot of frameworks that are there for sustainability, which applies to us. Everyone. And this is where we thought that on this occasion of our foundation day, this knowledge sharing from the experts of the field that they can share, because all of them who are on the dais have done a lot of work on sustainability. Of course, in the EHS and which has moved towards sustainability, they have hands-on experience, and that is what we are going to interact with them, and we will get more information from all of you, ladies and gentlemen. So just to take this discussion forward, we came together as panelists, and we brought some topics which would be relevant, and it will give you a lot of insight towards this subject. The first thing that I want to, I will pose to all the panelists one by one, we'll take it. Now we will start with Mr. Hilson. EHS and ESG, what is the perspective of Mr. Hilson? Because Indomim has started their journey towards sustainability, and on the other hand, they have done a lot of work on environment, energy, safety and all. So what is your perspective of EHS and ESG, if you can set that context? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this question. According to us, the most important thing between the EHS and ESG is to understand the difference and similarities. So most of the companies or the organization, actually, they don't understand the difference between or the similarities which is existing between the EHS and ESG. Of course, we have been practicing EHS for a long time across the board in many places, but now it is the time for a paradigm shift between EHS and ESG. In fact, EHS, as we all know, it is basically the compliance of regulations and compliance of course, it is protecting the environment and protecting the safety of the employees. So now there is a different social aspect coming into it, where the human rights and safety inclusive of the environment is coming into the picture. So now the main challenge or main important thing, what we, according to me, is to understand what is the how it fits into it. Of course, if I see the ESG is a bigger picture, and EHS is a smaller picture which fits into that. When you talk about EHS, of course, as an organization, if we see, we don't see a lot of cost benefits or savings or actually in terms of, but when we talk about ESG, when we started implementing, we understand, actually as a company, we have driven a lot of projects across the plant, which has really driven a lot of cost saving across the plant. I would be actually elaborating it maybe during the next point,
Yes.
but about the experience of what we have. But it is really actually, I mean, one is the cost saving part of it. Second thing is more transparency in the business, which also attracts more of the customers as well, and growing the business and making the supply chain more robust is what actually, according to me, it is more important.
Thank you, Mr. Hilson. So, yes, Mr. Mohan, so you are from Bosch, and I have worked with Bosch, so it's like coming back to you. You have done a lot of work on EHS, and Bosch is a pioneer in EHS. So how is that shift towards, and your perspective on EHS and ESG?
Yeah, thanks, Gayatri, and thanks for inviting me for this discussions. See, I would say from Bosch perspective, EHS was always part of our business strategy. You know, all along I am with Bosch for 22 years. Always the focus was not only on compliance, waste management, those things. Always year on year we used to have specific targets for water conservation, energy conservation, reducing waste, replacing more hazardous substances with less hazardous substances in our processes. So this was always there. Also, as you know, Bosch is driven by both internal requirements and country-specific legal requirements. Of course, always we say zero tolerance for any non-compliance with legal requirements. See, ESG, in my view, it is not something new. It always existed. Environment existed. The social, where always we were looking within our fences on employee welfare, employee engagement, taking care of employees' health and safety. This was always there. And the governance, I look more from how we were monitoring our compliances, because it's licensed to operate. Without governance, we have no authority to run our business. So ESG is always there as a part of EHS. But what is positive development which has happened in last 2-3 years? Say in Bosch, there was a trigger. In Bosch, we believe strongly in showing a single face of Bosch. Always we publish our sustainability report from Germany. We don't have regional specific reports. But in India, we have a unique situation where earlier Myco and now Bosch Limited is a listed company, and now we are forced to publish our own independent reports. So this is where we found some conflict, because the conflict is because there should not be conflict between the central report and our India specific report. This is where we are also finding a lot of challenges. In fact, yesterday also late in the evening, we are working on that, and we are in the advanced stage of publishing our BRSR for financial year 22-23. So I would say the positive thing which has happened is it has brought environmental professionals, social ware, HR professionals and governance, company secretary and others together to work for a common cause. And it's also bringing a lot of focus, and the management is also looking at, see, always when we go to the management earlier with environmental project or safety projects, we used to always discuss for a long time on return on investment. But today that is not there. Just to give an example, today in our Bosch Biddi plant, we have rainwater harvesting system which can capture 1 crore liters of water. We spent 36 crores. And this came from Bosch because Bosch gives away every year 10 million euros for such projects in different regions. And with just rains in May and June, this tank has overflown many times already, and we have stopped taking water from KIDB and borewells. So this is the positive impact which is happening. ESG is something which has happened very good for industries, and it is going to change the way we play our game. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohan. So Sheryl, your views about it, because you are the country head and you work towards social parameters more. So I would like to hear from you and your perspective.
Yeah. I just completed writing the BRSR report, Principle 6, Principle 5. Yeah. So last year it was the miniature version. I would say this year it was a elaborate version. And when Gayatri told me about EHS and ESG convergence, I face a practical problem. And I'll tell you why. First is, almost everyone is from EHS here. Just raise hand so that I will know. Okay, thank you. So probably their problems, what resonates there, I can voice it from this podium. One is EHS department as such. We are very good with data, right? You pick Principle 5. Principle 5 talks about well-being, right? And what comes in well-being? EHS training. How many people you have trained? What is your LTIFR rating? What is your RIR number, right? And then what is your business resilience policy? When it comes to Principle 6, again data, which is your air emissions, water emissions, treated water quantity, whether it is within the parameter tolerance limits or not. When it comes to ambient. Now, all this data, we have very good reports with us. Now, to what extent as EHS professionals you are using that data to drive business strategies? How many of you who are in EHS department, when your parameters are very close to the tolerance limit, have gone to the MD, sat across the table and asked them, I need a budget because you know why? Mine is a listed company and I have to write a BRSR report and I'm seeing this going out of limits in next few months if you don't give me the budget. How many of us had that kind of conversation? Right? Not many. Now this is the real conversation or the convergence of EHS and ESG, I would say. First is the foundation data. We have the data, leverage this data to drive the business strategies and business decision making. First. Second, compliance. How many of us are appraised with the recent changes in the compliance? How many of us are aware that a new OHC code has come? Is my organization ready for that change? Okay? It talks about, if you read it, in Karnataka chapter, if you read the OHC code, it talks about you need to do the health part, an annual medical examination, 38 parameters needs to be tested. How much of cost impact that will have on the organization? It is a cost, right? It is health. If you go back to the BRSR report, there is a health section you have to fill. Principle number 5, I think. 5 or human rights and principle 3. Plus, it's not only the cost. Because as an EHS person, when a person tells me the EHS is cost, I would beg to differ. EHS is cost avoidance. Example, environmental compliance compensation rules, CPCB guidelines. Calculate every emission if I exceed, if you are a red category industry, how much of compensation you will end up paying if you are not prepared or in not compliance with the rules. Candid conversation. I had this conversation with my MD and I got nearly 5 crores. I told him, if you are not giving me this, take it for granted, in the next 2 years, you'll not be in the place where you'll be comfortably able to publish sustainability report. No, not possible. You want to publish a sustainability report properly, you need to have a BRSR report which is in very good numbers, then you need to make investment now. From where you get the money, I'm not bothered, but I want this money. Okay. Have this candid conversation, important. Because most of us saying that we don't have a seat across the table and you cannot speak. No, not true. If you make up your mind, fix a meeting, go have this conversation. That was second point. First was foundation data you have, second was compliance. Third, risk assessment. We are very good at risk assessment, people. Like you pick up principle 3, it talks about whether organization is giving the responsibility and platform for operators or workers to identify the hazards, right? We are very good with HERA. But how much of those risks have you gone and spoken and told this risk comes in the top 3 incidents which can happen in the future, okay? And to avoid this risk and to avoid this hazard causing an injury, I need X amount or X budget. How many of us have had? Okay, important. Risk assessment data is there with you, but use this data to drive the business strategies. Use this data to reduce the impact on the organization. So I will close with this remark, EHS and ESG are the 2 cost avoidance departments, okay? Sometimes it overlaps, sometimes they work in silos, but it is required for us to work together so that we know what the risk is coming towards the company. You understand and manage those risks and opportunity and the compliance. So that's it from me.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Cheryl. Very valid point. Yes, Mr. Paresh.
Yeah. So I started my career 30 years back, and that's what the time when everybody was talking about the ISOs and systems and TPM and TQM kind of things. Companies were talking about ISO 14,000, and that time it was 18,000. And there used to be a separate professional as environment and separate for safety. You look at the 10 years down the line now, systems and all that is given actually that, this is something anyway you have to do it. People no more talk about as an additional kind of advantage to the company because it's kind of embedded now in the organizations. You also see that the environment and safety kind of more or less merged together in many organizations. You'll find either is HSE, EHS as one kind of a pillar actually rather than having a separate one, except in few industries, let's say in steel and all that, still they are kind of separate functions. And maybe 20 years down the line, I would still see that probably the EHS and ESG kind of merging into one where you will look at that there will be more kind of ESG professional, which is the EHS would be a subset of it or is a part of it. As you know that EHS is more about efficiency, more about inward looking. It is more about resource efficiency, it's more about protecting people from injuries. ESG, of course, is much more bigger umbrella than just the EHS. But, to get a good ESG performance, you need a good EHS performance as well. You can't have a good ESG without a good EHS or robust EHS systems at place. Many organizations which have very strong EHS, as Mr. Mohan talked about Bosch, if they have a good EHS performance and robust system in place, for them the transition becomes much, much easier. So I would say that, EHS is a subset of it, and going forward, probably both would merge together.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sri Kumar, please. So, Mr. Sri Kumar, you're from a different domain of technology. So, your perspective of this EHS and ESG, when you see from the eyes of the technology.
Sure. Anyhow, wishing you all at EHS a wonderful anniversary and way forward. Thanks for inviting and great to be here. So I come from the technology industry. I moved to safety compliance 12 years back from software primarily delivering system of safety records to global enterprise. We also, when we thought, we headquartered our company in the UK just to ensure compliance is global. So we serve Middle East, Asia and India out of that. So looking at how the transformation has happened, today, any strategy in any corporate. So I work with some of the leading investment funds, then the boards, and then the senior leadership executive teams. So one is, a strategy is a technology strategy. No longer a strategy is formed without technology. Second thing, digital platform is what drives the technology strategy as well. So when we look at the EHS function, they have been the primary contributor, go-to team for ESG. Because to start with any initiative in the ESG, EHS function delivers the ground reality of what it is. And board, the compulsion comes from two external factors, the capital markets and the insurance. So we are seeing more and more risk insurance, risk premiums getting altered. And EHS was not part of the finance commitment. Today, the risk premium is based on EHS data. So these two are the great drivers where business board compulsion is happening for EHS to own. So I see three levels of shift. One is EHS contributes to the strategy, not just collecting data. The second thing is they also they become part of decision making because no decision, whether a supplier approval, packing material, plant, energy, consumption, resources, culture, everything now the EHS people are expected, whether the current, even education, we have sustainability has to be introduced as a common factor in all topics, because we have from different subjects. So we see EHS in decision making, EHS in strategy, and EHS in data collection and contribution. The fourth important thing is where today who will own it? So that is again expectation by the board suddenly that EHS has to bridge the culture. What is to be they incentivize, they announce the policy, but who will do the engagement between both the environment, external regulators or the goals, as well as the employees. So I call it E1, E2 and engagement, because that is a different capability, and the teams have to be equipped to do that, because nobody, who will do the advocacy, who will do the capacity building, who would bring in, okay, safety is a control function, here it's an enablement function. So I see a lot of time to catch up, and most importantly, I see technology as a big glue, which can normalize politics, bring in collaboration, bring in seamless tools. So what we also see is a separate technology team with the EHS, because you need project management, you need collaboration tool, data mining, ML, and huge technology absorption is required, which the IT function doesn't have the mind share to deliver that. So that is because they have mainstream ERP, production, CRM, payable, receivable. There is no mind share for the technology, infrastructure, or the application team to equip the EHS teams to deliver to this goal. So that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Srikumar. Thank you. So if you see, just to summarize what the panelists have brought in about EHS and ESG. So one panelist talked about cost, about ESG. Another talked about the difference between corporate and the regional reporting part. Then Cheryl talked about advocacy, how to advocate with. And Paresh brought in the journey of EHS, how EHS is getting towards sustainability. And Srikumar, of course, brought in the perspective of technology. So these are all like a context that we have now about EHS and ESG. Now, the next thing I would like to talk to the panelists is mainly the people who have implemented some best practices that, practical examples that they have implemented towards successful ESG. So I would pose this question first to Mr. Mohan about the EHS and ESG projects that have been done. One example you have already given about rainwater harvesting. Other than that, any one best practice or practical example so that the audience will get a perspective of that.
See, other example is, we are carbon neutral, Bosch globally, from January 2020. So today Bosch is 89-90% green energy, and 10% is what carbon credits for scope 1 emissions. So 100% neutral. But what our CEO then said, Mr. Denner, that when we become carbon neutral, we should go with quality measures. Quality measures in the sense, we should not try to use the existing environmental initiatives, but we should add capacity to the system, ecosystem. So for the first time in India, it is first time in Bosch world that we went with a developer to set up a group captive solar model. Today this is running in Karnataka in the district of Raichur, 30 megawatt plant. We did this with AMP, and all our units, we are located mainly in Bangalore. 30% of energy, that is green electricity, is coming from this plant. And the difficulties we faced was, there was an investment. If you take overall investment, 8% has to be invested by the consumer. And this is where this approval has to go to our CEO, who sits in Germany, is called Jivan. And the process was so painful, it took time, but somewhere we knew that we will succeed. And I could say it took close to around 2 years. We started somewhere in end of 2019, and then we had COVID. So this plant was commissioned in January 2022. It's more than 1.5 years, close to 1.5 years now. And today everybody says that this was the best thing we could have done. And we have already started our second project for 20 megawatt. We are working with, again, developers, and we have some bidding next week. So it has created such a positive impact that Bosch India is being showcased in Bosch World. Whenever they talk about, the carbon neutrality or climate action, they take examples from Bosch India.
That's a great initiative.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Mr. Paresh, best practices that you have implemented because you have worked in various industries. So, one example.
So in the current one, actually, we are in that, you know, that we are in the decarbonization space, actually. We help the corporates in terms of reducing their carbon footprints. The total installed capacity is 8 gigawatt, and if you look at the install as well as the current one, it will be about 14 gigawatt, which is almost of 1.5% of electrical consumption in India. And by 2030, it will be about in the range of 30 to 40 gigawatt, actually. And mainly supporting the corporates in terms of reducing their carbon footprint. But when it comes to some other initiatives like, most of our solar plants are in the water scarcity area, let's say in Rajasthan or Gujarat and those areas actually, where the water is scarce actually. And we need the water for cleaning of the solar panels. Now all that is actually changed with the dry cleaning with the robotics. It helps in terms of reducing the accidents as well as it helps in reduction of the water consumptions at the solar power plants, because you can use the renewable energy to run the robots, and that's how it is kind of a dry cleaning for the solar, which is one example. The other one is, I would say, from the technology part of it, which talked about the tools which we had for the EHS. Now those are integrated with the ESG requirement, so that we have one platform, and if there's any requirement from any of the framework, it can be integrated with the existing one. So there's no separate platform for ESG and separate for EHS. With the same platform, you can get all the emissions, all the accidents reports, your CO2 emissions, everything gets integrated into the one tool. So this is the one which helps us in terms of getting all the data, as well as from the data integrity point of view, it also helps.
Thank you, Paresh. Maybe Mr. Hilson, you can share one examples of best practice that you have implemented in India.
So thank you. Of course, Indomim, again, actually, I would start with the power. We use almost 51 lakh units of power every month. It's a very high power intensive unit where we get a red carpet welcome from the BESCOM, not anymore, because we moved out of the electricity to the green power. Out of this 51 lakh unit of power, now at present 96% is through renewable energy. It is through solar, wind and hydro. And as Mr. Mohan was mentioning, we had the similar issue of two challenges. One is the commitment to the captive powers also. Whenever we go for captive power, we cannot actually work on a short-term basis. Considering the market, the volatility in the market, the uncertainty in the market, it is very difficult to take a decision to move forward in this kind of an investment. So it is a hard time for actually to take an initial step, but we can see a lot of savings in terms of the cost of power as well. And of course, we can see a lot of uninterrupted power also. We have been getting an uninterrupted power also as well. And we are also progressing towards the rooftop solar in the plant. The second thing actually would like to mention is also about the digitization in the plant. Of course, I think Madam also has seen that. The entire plant is now paperless operation. So we do not have any reports, anything written on papers. Gone are the days actually when you used to write the production report, because ours is a production unit where most of the things, even the quality or the production, everything was actually manual. So again, this was a challenge when we wanted to invest on a bigger scale. But what we did is we started working on OPEX model, not working on the CAPEX model. So what we did is we started working on small areas, small projects, and then incremental, actually step by step, like an OPEX model. We now actually have captured the entire plant with the IoTs and the digitization way of doing it. So this is also one of the major milestone which we have done. And I would also like to mention one more point on the ZLD. We have installed a ZLD plant by the vapor, vacuum distillation method. So this is again one more area where 0% of water is being sent out of the plant. 100% of the water is being reused. We actually have of course, we have the plating plant, the finishing plant and machine shop where a lot of effluents are being generated, but it is passed through the effluent treatment plant, and then it is also through a RO plant, and then the RO rejects is also treated with a ZLD. So absolutely there is no wastage of water. This is one of the major milestone, and which is also resulted in saving a lot of water. We used to use almost 4.5 lakh liters of water every day. Now, 80,000 liters of water is being used, which is a very, very significant improvement what we've seen on the plant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Cheryl, I would come to you for a best practice because 3M has done a lot of things in EHS, safety related, because I know you work intensively in the safety area. So, one best practice that you want to share with the audience.
Rather than sharing one, I would just go through the journey what 3M does. Now, we are a 120-year-old company, started in 1901, and in India we started in 1987. So, we have something called a sustainability value commitment because we are an innovative company. We keep coming up with new products, lot of patents. Now, whenever a scientist has to come with a new product, that product has to be substantiated with a sustainability value commitment. Means, when you're manufacturing this product, are we using renewable resources? Are we able to use recycled material? Can you locally source it? Instead of me getting an RM from US, can I locally source it within India? Because it has a lot of carbon footprint reduction, it can happen. So that was one. Now, when you manufacture, one I told about the RM. The second one is when you manufacture at your facilities, how are you going to manufacture this product? Can you reduce the water consumption when you're manufacturing this? Will you be able to use a renewable energy when you're manufacturing this? And can you reduce water, waste, air emissions? Can we avoid using the harmful chemicals, volatile organic compounds? Can I have a technology instead of solvents? Can I use water? 3M is going solvent free now. Because it's very difficult for a chemical company like me where we have to manufacture adhesives. Solvents is crucial for that. Where companies telling you have to go away from solvents. Now my scientists are given with the challenge that how to develop a product. Now that is sustainability value commitment, and the reason why I stress this is product stewardship is part of EHS in 3M. EHS and PS is what our department is called. So any product, if it has to come into the market, it has to be a sustainable product. Otherwise, it will not get a go-ahead. So that is, by design, we take care of sustainability, right? Second thing is when you are transporting this product. Because sometimes what happens, not every manufacturing is there in India. You have to get these products from abroad. Now, when you're doing that, can I prevent the damages during transportation? Because if you don't prevent, it will end up as your non-working inventory. And non-working inventory, we all know where it goes. Right? I'm giving you a practical example. How, as an EHS person and a product stewardship person, you can avoid transportation waste. The last one is for the customers. Now, sustainability, when we speak, it's not only how I reduce my carbon footprint at my facility, but also when I'm developing a product. I'll give you one example. All of us own cars here, right? And we give our car to a car care center. If you see earlier, like 10, 15 years back, it used to be a water wash car care center. Now, if you go to any 3M car care center, okay, we don't use one drop of water there. We have developed our product in such a way it is waterless. It gives you the same purity when you get your car outside. It will eliminate the bacterial and the microbial contamination, but at the same time, I don't use water. Just for the statistics, per car you use 100 liters of water. In a day, more than, I think, 10 million car gets washed across the world. Imagine the quantity of water that will get consumed. So, my company focuses on products that will have a sustainability value commitment, SVC, when you manufacture everything. We produce products which enable a market shift. Nobody would have thought we come up with that product, and that itself will shift the market.
Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks so much. So there is so much about product design. I know many of your companies are also into it, sustainable product design, right? Good insight by all the panelists, and I will come to Mr. Srikumar about the technology part of it. you touched upon it a little bit when you gave a context. What is the role of this emerging technologies when we talk about AI and the
Sure.
announcement that is happening? How it is helping the ESG
Yeah,
journey
would.
of an organization?
Yeah, so our experience comes, it is drawn from delivering projects to customers. So two major projects I just want to bring in what technology intervention could deliver. So one of the thing is waste optimization. So how do you start? Where do you start? So we started looking at working with someone to do the waste stream analysis, both upstream and downstream. Then categorization based on GRN, we are able to get what material and then categorize it based on the waste it would generate, both this one. Then waste categorization and quantification. Based on ERP data, we were able to build a ML model saying that if the business scales so much, so many invoices, so many shipments, so many deliveries, this is the upstream and downstream category of waste. And then we went on to working with suppliers, packing material, and how to introduce a reusable material. So the whole model was a data-driven, specific problem-solving project to optimize and see how to lay down the roadmap and keep working. So that is one very big learning on how to look at waste streams, how to categorize the impact of material usage across both inbound and outbound. And how do you, there are a lot of innovation happening in the reusable carts, pallets, and the whole thing, where you could reuse and rotate movable assets. That is one. Second project is very interesting. That is in India, where all the large hotel brands decided that they'll do away with all the plastic bottles. So we are only looking at always EHS to come up with the problem solving for ESG. That the mindset is suddenly somebody is expected to solve problem. So what is the business problem? Or where do you draw from? So this is actually what has happened is the supply chain supplier, we don't know which supplier to go and talk to solve this problem. Today in the status, because it is an innovation, I won't call it jugaad, something is required which is not there in the value chain. It is not there in the market. I can't put an RFP and buy. So these are challenges even in large enterprise. When large hotel brands decided I'll do away with the plastic, then they had to do a capex investment of doing an RO plant in every facility. So that goes through a civil work, clearances, and there is also the ambience and all that gets distorted. Next is who will operate the plant. And then you need glass bottles. Then they have to make it aesthetic for the guest with shape, branding, and all that. And who will manufacture those bottles? Because glass bottle plants are closed. So the technology challenge, and to bring in, the supplier went and bought 2 units. One is to manufacture glass bottles and design it. Second, he also he came up with a plant which will wash and reuse. The next problem shifted to traceability. How many rooms are checked in? How many guests, how many bottles are getting washed, how many bottles are getting filled. So technology intervention helped in traceability and then ensuring that guest experience is delivered with the right quality records. Those are the two.
Thank you so much. I think all of you will agree that
Recording in progress.
There to help us now. So we talked about the context and what best practices the companies have done. So the last one that we will be discussing about the challenges. I know all of you are waiting for that. What are the challenges that panelists have faced when you are facing from EHS to ESG? So, because all of you have faced challenges. So this panel discussion, we will talk about the challenges and what solutions you have got, and then we can wrap it out. So I would request all of you to share it. Maybe we will start with the lady, Cheryl. One challenge that you have faced and what is the solution?
See, I would say it's not one, it is 4. And I face it every time. Now, all of us know we are going through a recession is what we hear in the news, right? And the first projects that gets impacted is your EHS projects, okay? Now, when I go for a meeting where I have to convince my business leaders, most of them are from abroad, I will not talk about money, okay? I would say, I go with the data before that. Pick up for all EHS engineers, this is a tip. Pick your environmental compensation rules. There is a calculation for that, okay? If you exceed 1 parameter's tolerance limit, if you are a red category industry, right? how much will be the compensation that your company has to pay. Okay? Every company will have a risk analysis method, right? Hazard, we will say it is a high risk, low risk, medium risk. Every project that is safety related, I will go with the risk category number, and if it is a high risk, which can result in amputation, there is a separate calculation for that in OSHAS, okay? What will be the compensation amount that company has to pay? Yeah, true, okay? That's the reason I say EHS is a cost avoidance. So first thing is, as an EHS person, first step for you is be appraised with the compliance, upcoming regulations, okay? This is the tool which we have, not people from manufacturing or operations, they will not have. You are that bridge that will help management understand the risk. An operation person has to produce, he has the numbers to meet, but it is our job to convince them these are the issues. If we don't take care of EHS, company can run into these issues. And being a listed company, because mine is a listed company in India, and I have an obligation of having a BRSR report, which will have an impact on their share price. I will also tell my managing director, with whom I have 1:1 conversation every month, if you don't give this X budget, if I have a lost time injury, right, it will reduce your principal 3 number, okay? If I have an exceedance in tolerance limit in principal 6, it will also impact your share price. My company share price is 28,000, by the way, okay? If you don't, then imagine the impact on share price, because the moment you publish your BRSR, it will have an immediate impact on your share price. So EHS and ESG is interlinked with your operation expenses plus your company's food in the business arena also. And when you talk with numbers of share price, no managing director will say you go and do it.
Totally.
They will not tell you. Okay, so that is one. Second thing I face a problem is, earlier for the annual report, only EHS person used to give the data and finance person will give the data. Now what is happening is, there is one person identified as sustainability officer, and it is very crucial for the heads of the department in this forum, please identify this person who is from science background. Required. I'll tell you, when we have this conversation with them, if a person does not know what is MMBTU, million metric thermal units, kiloliters to metric cube, if the person does not know the conversion, what are we talking about sustainability here? You have not hired the right person for the right job. Important. You need to have a science background person for data assimilation, because it is not just collecting data, it is an interpersonal skill. How does this person go and convince other department fellow? It can be HR, it can be from production person, because energy, water is there with production team, right? If you do not understand the unit of measurement, how can you drive sustainability? Important, right?
Very
Two
valid
things.
challenge of skills.
And the last one is cross-functional team. If a company has to succeed in EHS, ESG integration, problem what we face is everyone is working in silo. I will give my number, it is enough, done. That will happen only in the month of March. What about up to March? Who is reviewing those numbers, whether you are meeting the targets, whether you'll be able to reach the target by the end of the year? Who's monitoring that? It is not just data collection. As sir rightly told, it is not data collection. Use the data to drive the business strategy. Use the data to make an impact. We at EHS people have a very important task in hand. Keeping our people safe, protecting the environment. And not everyone will get this opportunity. You have that. Utilize it to the fullest extent.
Thank you, Shailesh.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I request all the panelists on the time, just one example of your challenges so that we keep up the time. Thank you.
See, I will not speak about budget, data and CFT because Cheryl has done it. See, for us in Bosch, as I said, only Bosch Limited in India is listed and we need to publish. See, we are not shying away from publishing, but for us the most challenging task is that whatever we publish for India, it should align with our central report. If there is a difference, then it becomes a big issue, because all the agencies who do assessment on ESG scorecard would go into the data and then it brings out big challenges. In fact, yesterday, I'm speaking about yesterday, in the afternoon, I had a discussion with my boss on certain datas, and I could not convince him on certain datas, and that's where we worked late into the evening, and we sent the spreadsheets and those things so that they understand how we are taking out India data from Bosch World data and trying to publish. But I will tell you, it is very difficult, and I don't know, still we need to publish. Since it's going into the public domain, the senior management is very nervous. You know, for the first time we are giving so much data. As Cheryl said earlier, it was only some paragraph we used to speak about EHS in the annual reports. With BRSR, it is more than what we have thought of, and it's going to be the biggest challenge for the companies.
Yes.
Thank you.
Aligning the corporate and the regional reports. Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Hills.
Yeah. So I think in general, you know, the investment part of it is, I mean, more dominant actually across the panelists as well. See, actually, one major thing when it comes under ESG is, we are not only seeing within the company, we are also seeing actually at a broader picture, bigger picture. And one tool actually I would try to also recommend is, because we started working on all the 17 SDG goals, which is not only within the company, which is also outside the company. See, there is one way, the CSR activities, which actually most of the company has to do. 2% is a mandate. Actually, every company has to shell out some portion of the profit to the CSR activities. So one of the things what we also try to do is aligning the projects what we identify for the ESG in line with the CSR. In terms of all the 17 SDG goals, we are trying to identify investing these CSR money which has been allocated towards these projects, which can really actually try to bring in more amount of projects as such. Thank you.
So working with the outside community is also giving an insight. So Mr. Paresh, you are from the safety background, so I would like to hear from you a challenge that is there for the safety professionals.
I think it's, one is about, both of them talked about the digitization. Digitize your data actually. If you don't digitize your data, then when the data verification comes, data integrity comes, then you will be in a trouble actually. The data should speak, if it is digitized well, then it becomes very, very helpful actually. Second is about, having standard reporting systems in place when it comes to safety. Many organizations will not have, let's say, incidents which are related to commute. Many organizations will have incidents related to commute. How do you really calculate your working hours? Have that standards in place so that data verifications becomes much, much easier. The other one is, which Cheryl talked about, the compliance part. If that also is not digitized, if you don't have a good compliance task manager, then also, you will see that your compliances will have a big, big challenge. Let's say in the case of, if you are drawing water from the borewell and you have an approval from central groundwater authorities, which need to be renewed, and if that is not renewed in time, if it's delayed, you will get a notice from central groundwater authorities that is a compensation. It says environmental damage and compensation. If you still continue to withdraw the water from the same borewell which you had the permission, but now it's kind of overdue, and if you don't do it in time, and that you have to go in your ESG disclosure that you have paid so much of money for environmental compensation and disclosure. So these are the few things I feel that equally important.
Thank you, Mr. Paresh. So, Mr. Srikumar, we will wrap up this with your comments
sure.
on the challenges that companies are facing with respect to
One is the
Germany.
challenges for a service provider is to, first is who's the, 3 years back we used to talk to EHS contact and then talk about digital tools. Today, the board and CEO speak about it. So that is one big shift. And I have 4 things which likely these challenges are addressed. I think progress on ESG or EHS can happen faster. First is accountability. There has to be stated clarity on the JD that EHS person is accountable, and it's well known across the organization, communicated, so that people listen to the EHS stakeholder, because that otherwise no project can be implemented. I think that is lacking. Second is the seat in the boardroom. Definitely, whether we see that if you have an auditor or a lawyer or somebody, a sustainability safety person has to be on the board. So that boards who are serious for next 5 to 7 years cannot carry the business without the sustainability person, safety or whatever EHS, ESG person has to be in the boardroom. The third is our CEO also rolls up. Today they are signing for the triple bottom line. Without the EHS front line, that is not going to happen. Third is technology absorption. What we see is production, R&D, manufacturing have all technology, right? They have their own, solar will have some panel technology. Each industry has their own technology. But for enabling sustainability initiatives, safety initiatives, we need technology absorption, internalizing. That is a very, because that technology may not be useful in their line of business. But the sustainability related technology, who will own? So that is a third important piece. And fourth is ecosystem building. There has to be a lot more engagement, community engagement, marketplace engagement. I think these four are new roles which all organizations have to solve.
Thank you, Mr. Shrikumar. Thanks to all panelists. Just to summarize what we discussed in the past 30-35 minutes. So we started a discussion with setting a context of what is EHS and ESG intersection. So you got a perspective from various panelists that are there. I am sure that you would have aligned to one or more of this context that is there in your organization also. Then the second is some of the best practices that the panelists shared, more on renewable energy, the challenges they faced, what they have done. So you have them here talking about what they have done. So this is an insight to you about what best practices you can adopt in your organization. The third thing that we discussed is the challenges. I'm sure all of you might have aligned with these challenges that the panelists have brought about, especially working with various stakeholders in the organization. That is, I think, is a main pain point for the EHS people, because the importance of ESG, why they are giving the data, where it is going, how it is getting disclosed, many of the stakeholders in the organization, when I say stakeholder, process owners, are not aware of. I think you will agree with when I make this statement. That is where the challenge is for the EHS people, because majority of the organization, EHS will be responsible for the sustainability journey also. So this is where the challenges they have posed and the solutions that they got will help you also in your journey. With this, I'll wrap up this discussion, and thanks to all our panelists for the insightful information you have given.
We request all of you to
Thanks
kindly
you,
stay
audience.
back
Please
as we have a small token of
stay back.
appreciation. Please stay back. Let's have a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to all these beautiful panelists and, of course, our moderator. Thank you so much. Well, I must say that this session was definitely insightful for all of us. Let's have a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to all these fabulous people here on stage. We request Gayatri ma'am to kindly hand over the token of appreciations to our proud panelists. Thank you so much for taking out time and giving us your valuable information. To all the info you have guided us, thank you so much once again. And here's a small token of appreciation from our entire team. Hope that brings a smile on all of your faces. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's have a big round of applause, everybody. Our team's complaining, saying that no one's clapping louder. Yeah, Kanjusi to nahi banta hai. Come on, everyone. Thank you.